Hello friends! The most recent Nancy Drew game, Mystery of the Seven Keys, came out last year, which is great and all, but it's a new year, and now it's time to look to the future. What could be the next Nancy Drew game? And as we all know, all of the Nancy Drew games are inspired by at least a crumb of a Nancy Drew book. So in the spirit of wild speculation and joy, I have decided to corral some Nancy Drew books, which I think would make fun games, just based on their synopses. It's 2025. I don't have time to read. I have made a video on this topic in the past as well, which you don't need to watch this one, but if you enjoy this and you haven't seen it, you could go check it out. Let's kick this off like a firework with a bang, because the first book I would like to put to you for a potential Nancy Drew game is New Year's Evil, the Nancy Drew and Hardy Boys super mystery book. Nancy Drew heads for Quebec City to investigate sabotage on the set of the romantic TV thriller Dangerous Loves. But the action behind the scenes is far more chilling than anything on camera. Somebody is secretly determined to turn the film into a flop. Oh no. The movie's title adds an ominous twist to the case when Bess falls for its very attractive star. One of Nancy's prime suspects. Why does that always happen? Bess and George are always falling for Nancy's prime suspects. Meanwhile, Frank and Joe Hardy are also in Quebec for the Winter Carnival's spectacular auto ice racing event, but they soon find themselves in a race of their own to catch a murderer. Racing champion Andre Junot has turned up dead. At the same time, a photographer from the movie set has turned up missing. Nancy, Frank, and Joe form a single resolution: infiltrate the criminal conspiracy. Hear me out. It's not necessarily the plot, which I think would make a good game for this one. In fact, I think there's way too much going on, and we've already had a game set on a TV set, and I think the auto racing is perhaps a bit too much for a Nancy Drew game to aspire to. What I'm really interested in is the unique setting of this book, which is Quebec City at the time of the Winter Carnival, which I just think is such a fascinating setting, and it would be so visually beautiful as well. It's incredibly unique. It's a setting that gives you both culture and style. This kind of looks like I'm a little villain rubbing my hands together, but I just put on hand cream. Imagine looking for clues in an ice palace, like the just magical, snowy beauty of that. And then what if Fatima shows up in like a Bonhomme Carnival suit? There's the opportunity for all sorts of winter sports: sledding, skiing, skating, drag racing on the ice, I suppose, if you really want to bring in the racing plot line. You could have Nancy die in a game of chicken. That could be a second chance. And the Hardy Boys are there. We all love a game with the Hardy Boys. I mean, we don't love Midnight in Salem necessarily, but we love that the Hardy Boys are there, right? I feel like the Hardy Boys kind of improve any plot. Like, imagine Midnight in Salem without the Hardy Boys, a significantly worse game, I think we can all agree. And then because it's set at New Year's, you could have like a beautiful firework display when Nancy solves the mystery. Like at the conclusion, you know at the end of White Wolf of Icicle Creek when Nancy has to chase the culprit on a snowmobile? Maybe there's some kind of dramatic, thrilling chase sequence, but they're on cross-country skis or in drag racing cars or something, and then the culprit crashes, and then we pan up to the sky, and it's like, pooh, pooh, just at that exact moment the fireworks display starts. I can see it now, I can visualize it, and it looks freaking great. In my mind ice palace, I'm visualizing it. Although granted, thinking of White Wolf of Icicle Creek, we've already had one snowy mystery set in Canada, but I still think it could be a really cool setting, or maybe some other kind of like ice festival. I think there's a lot around the world. Like, I think there's one in China that's really big. So that could be something to think about as well. Okay, my second pick for a book which could, I think, make a good Nancy Drew game is Close Encounters from the Girl Detective series. Could aliens actually exist in small town Vermont? Likely place as any. Nancy suspects not. Nancy, Bess, and George have driven from River Heights to northern Vermont to visit a friend of George and her mom's who owns a quaint, touristy small restaurant/cafe in a town near a major ski resort. They are amazed that, though it is past the height of foliage season and barely ski season, there is a traffic jam of cars waiting to catch a ferry. They decide to drop out of line and drive to a local diner. When they question the waitress about what is going on, she is surprised they haven't heard, but there have been repeated and credible UFO sightings over the border in ski country in Vermont. George jokes about little green men in snowsuits. Bess suggests the men are red but wearing green snowsuits. Nancy simply cracks up, but grows serious when the waitress reveals that even federal government investigators have been called in. Vermont is turning into a North Country Roswell, New Mexico. It's been great for business, here and throughout northern Vermont, particularly for the town at the foot of the ski resort. But we're all getting a little tired of the crowds, the waitress confides. Or if I go by the Goodreads description, books. A cozy, small-town, autumnal Vermont setting meets an X-Files-esque mystery? Say less! You had me at Alien! One change, though, is that I would actually make it the height of foliage season, because how visually stunning would that be? Like, it's okay in a book to not necessarily make it that type of season, and I kind of can see why they did to make it abnormal. There's lots of crowds there, but I think for like a game where it's more of a visual medium, I would just love to see all the colors of the leaves. I think that would be gorgeous. And then there's the mention of the quaint restaurant and cafe possibility of a food minigame, potentially. And it's a great opportunity to retcon that stupid Anunnaki plotline, which I don't think anyone likes. Just, write over that, use this game as like a whiteout, totally erase that plotline, and get back to the fun aliens that everyone loves. Just little chubby green men. We don't want any of these aliens who helped build the pyramids. No. I hate that. No ancient beings. Just like little silly green men going they're little UFOs. That's the type of aliens we want, okay? They could even be gray. I'll compromise on the color. They don't even need to be green. Just silly little guys flying around. Like in one of Sunny June's doodles. What I'm trying to say is fun day the Anunnaki, okay? I think that whole subplot was a mistake. A total mistake. And since it's a new team of writers, they could totally just rewrite it and be like, Anunnaki? What's that? Never heard of that before. Whoa. I'm cheating a bit on this entry because I've actually read this book. I really liked it, and I read it because it was actually mentioned in the comments of the last video I made on this topic, and I'm so glad that that person commented about it because it was a really good Nancy Drew book. But it's only kind of cheating because I don't remember the finer details. In my notes, I've written, I have the brain of an anthropomorphic peanut if anthropomorphic peanuts existed. What time of night was I writing these notes? 3 a.m.? Anyway, yeah, my memory is not great. I have the brain capacity of Mr. Peanut, the mascot, the peanut mascot, the peanut-shaped mascot, the anthropomorphic peanut mascot. And he does exist. He is real. Just like aliens. Aliens are real. The truth is out there. I want to believe. Anyway, before I come up with some kind of conspiracy theory about Mr. Peanut and his army of small anthropomorphic peanuts building the pyramids, let's move on. The next book I wanted to mention is The Clue of the Velvet Mask, which is one of the original 56 Nancy Drew books. A masquerade party quickly turns into a mystery when Nancy and Ned spy an enigmatic man in a black cloak and an exotic woman in a glittering Havanese costume. Are they members of the gang of wily thieves who sneak into parties hosted by wealthy citizens to rob jewels and painting treasures? Why is the owner of the black velvet hooded mask Ned found during the party desperate to retrieve it? To find the answers, Nancy and George switch identities. George soon discovers that it can be both exciting and dangerous to masquerade as Nancy Drew. To be honest, I don't think this synopsis is very good or very well written. Like, I'm not sure why two people wearing costumes would be suspicious at a masquerade party, but I digress. A masquerade party would be such a fun setting for a game, and it would be less work for Her Interactive to animate if everyone's wearing masks, you know? It's the best of both worlds. It's both fun and functional. Like, everyone could be wearing fun costumes, and the idea of everyone wearing masks just puts the idea in your head that everyone's kind of got something to hide, some sort of secret behind the mask, which is so juicy. And they could turn around a probably insensitive plot and make it more of an exploration of Indonesian culture, for example. And since Her Interactive discontinued the one game, I think, where you get to play as George, there's an opportunity to play as her again in a game that people can actually play without having to pay like $700 for a copy of the game on eBay, you know? The next book I would like to suggest as a potential game is from the Nancy Drew Files series, and it's called Wicked for the Weekend. Hey! Nancy's found a murder mystery that's all fun until the killer gets real. Ned's fraternity is sponsoring a murder mystery weekend at the Old Pine Inn. The idea is that actors stage a murder, and the first guest to solve it wins a prize. For Nancy and Ned, the real prize is to spend some fun romantic time together. Oh, I get it. Nancy and Ned are being wicked for the weekend. That's where the title comes from. Or that's the plan. But the weekend is about to turn deadly serious. Michael Wentworth, president of Ned's fraternity, has been invited to take part in the play. His role? Murder victim. But somebody's added a dash of realism to the presentation, and a dash of real poison to his tea. Michael survives. But for how long? Nancy knows the drama is just beginning, and the murder could still get in the act. Okay, my first step of adapting this book to a game would be to completely remove Ned. I don't care about Nancy and Ned getting some, romantic time together. F that. I'm here for the mystery, not for Ned. They can do that off screen, you know? Especially if they're really getting wicked for the weekend. Me when I'm inviting my friends to see a new hit movie with me on Saturday. Hey, wicked for the weekend? That probably wasn't very funny, but it popped into my head and I had to do it. But I love the sound of this plot, like the idea of a murder mystery party in a cozy and restricted setting. It's kind of perfect for a game. And the whole idea of the murder mystery party presents the possibility of two parallel murders for Nancy to solve. The one in the murder mystery game and the real one. I feel like that would be really intriguing and add a layer of depth to the game and give you kind of more to sink your teeth into. You have to determine which clues are for the game and which clues are for the real mystery. And the setting of the Old Pine Inn, who doesn't love a cozy inn or hotel in a Nancy Drew game? Wickford Castle, Icicle Creek Lodge, for example. My next pick is Final Notes, another Nancy Drew Files book. Nancy visits deceased country singer Curtis Taylor's hometown to investigate a report that Taylor has been seen alive. But Nancy discovers that he's not only dead, he was also murdered via an tape she found while touring his mansion. Nancy must work quickly to unmask an elusive murder at the memorial concert for Taylor. So they're clearly playing on Elvis Presley and the conspiracy theory that he faked his own death with this one, which I think is actually a really unique subject matter for a Nancy Drew book, or a Nancy Drew game, you know? Like, a lot of the books are like, ooh, political subterfuge. Ooh, a cool new, like, rock club opens up and there's sabotage. Things like that. This one is special within the Files series because it has that real-life inspiration, and the plot is maybe a bit more original than some of the others, which kind of end up feeling like carbon copies of previous books in the series. And I am a little bit biased being an Elvis Presley fan, but Elvis's real mansion home, Graceland, which is where I envision this game being set, or like obviously the game version of it. But anyway, his real home, Graceland, it's this mansion and it's so over the top and elaborate. If you're not familiar, there's even a room called the Jungle Room, which is basically that. It's just like a room that's made to look like a jungle indoors. So cool. So I feel like Her Interactive would have an opportunity to just have a lot of fun with this, be absolutely like outrageous, over the top with all the different themed rooms in this mansion. And then of course there's the opportunity for lots of secret passages and hidden mechanisms included in the building at the whim of a rich and eccentric musician. Like, it's one of those circumstances where it would just make sense for those kind of things to be in the building if someone is eccentric enough that they have like a indoor jungle room kind of thing, you know? There's gotta be at least one secret passage in Graceland, and I would love to discover it. And think of all the music-themed puzzles. I think music-themed puzzles are pretty fun. They're much better than STEM-themed puzzles, in my opinion. I'm also just really curious to find out how this guy was killed with an tape. Although I suspect the tape actually just contains a vital clue pointing to his murder and the synopsis was just poorly written. Okay, and the next book I'm going to talk about is The Invisible Intruder, again part of the original Nancy Drew series. Nancy Drew, forget the ghost hunt, a male voice raps on the telephone. Hold on.
Nancy Drew, forget the ghost hunt.
A male voice rasps on the telephone. Despite the mysterious warning, the pretty teenage detective and a group of friends start out on a ghost hunting expedition to investigate 5 places reputed to be haunted. Danger strikes at once when Nancy tries to overtake the canoe that paddles itself on Lake Sevigny. Thrills and chills mount as the ghost hunters pursue a phantom horse and ghost rider racing across the field that surrounds the Red Barn guest house. During these happenings and other weird events, Nancy finds herself pitted against a dangerous adversary, clever enough to operate invisibly. In a dramatic climax, Nancy outwits her enemy in an eerie mansion and traps him in the fantastic Room of Skulls. This unusually intriguing story will delight all Carolyn Keene fans. I just love a spooky Nancy Drew game, who doesn't? And I think this plot has a good structure to it, which could translate well to the game with having this kind of intrinsic purpose of the ghost hunt and a limited number of locations where you travel to. Although the events do sound perhaps a bit too ambitious for a Nancy Drew game as is, but maybe they could pull it off. You know, if the intruder is invisible, that's less work to animate. Although I think the Phantom Horse is a bit too similar to Secret of Shadow Ranch. You know, they've done that already. But the real reason I included this one is I'm just so intrigued by the fantastic Room of Skulls. What does that mean? Okay, and the next book I think would make a pretty good Nancy Drew game is from the Nancy Drew Diaries series, and it's called Riverboat Roulette. Nancy and her friends only have a few hours to track down the donations for a charity gala that have mysteriously gone missing. In this 14th book of the Nancy Drew Diaries, a fresh approach to the classic mystery series, Bess's mom is on the board of Pet Crusaders, a local rescue organization, and hosts the charity's annual fundraising gala. Nancy, Bess, and George have attended the event ever since they were kids, and they're excited for this year's party, the theme of which is A Night on a Riverboat. The gala will feature blackjack, roulette, and a high-stakes poker tournament, and all proceeds will go to help stray animals. But when the charity money goes missing mid-event, Nancy has to track down the thief before the ship docks. With 3 hours and over 200 guests, Nancy faces one of her greatest mystery-solving challenges yet. And this is actually a unique item in this list because I would combine this plot with the plot of another Nancy book, as the idea of like a fundraiser for a rescue organization just isn't that compelling or evocative to me. So I would mash this together with an entry in the Girl Detective series, Riverboat Ruse. How about a seat at a mystery dinner on a riverboat? Yes, please. I jumped at the invitation to go along with Bess, George, and George's mom, who was hired to cater the dinner. That's interesting. In the other riverboat one, it's Bess's mom, and in this one, it's George's mom. Just an interesting parallel there. It's all fun until there's an actual theft, and there's nothing like a good crime to stop a party. Since I've got the magnifying glass, it's up to me to catch sticky fingers before this dinner's sunk. That synopsis said it perfectly. Yes, please! I am always down for a mystery-themed event, as you can probably tell by some of the items in my list. Always down for a party. Always down for a mystery-themed event, all the better when you combine those two and it's a mystery-themed party. If Bess and George were kept in this game, there could also be a cooking minigame where Nancy has to help out George's mom or something like that. Or, even if they weren't in the game, there could still be a cooking minigame. People love cooking minigames. This fandom is rabid for cooking minigames. They are feral for them, me included. And then taking an element from Riverboat Roulette, there could be poker and blackjack minigames as puzzles as well, which wouldn't be encouraging child gambling because it's in the source material. There has been multiple Nancy Drew books about poker. I read one, a girl detective book recently, and they literally explain all the rules of poker. The plot stops for a moment just for the book to become a poker manual. I kid you not. So, it wouldn't be out of character for this series. Although, 200 people, obviously her interactive would have to size down the cast list. Maybe the suspects are restricted to the people seated at Nancy's table for dinner or something like that. And I like the idea of the imposed time limit. I think that really ups the stakes. I imagine time would pass after you do a certain number of tasks, like in Secret of Shadow Ranch, creating this increased feeling of urgency. Although there would be no real timer or anything. No one likes a timed puzzle. Just the sense of time passing. Things escalating. Although maybe there could be one timed puzzle, like the final boss puzzles, such as the ones in Stay Tuned for Danger or the final scene, And before you say anything, I know I included a book set on a riverboat in the last video on this topic, but I can't help myself. It's just such a good setting. Naturally, while perusing for these books, I also stumbled upon some absolute stinkers, which I think would make dog shit games. And I had to include them just for fun, just for the drama. The first stinker is also from the Girl Detective series. It's called High Risk. It looks like Eveline Waters, a River Heights resident, is knee-deep in trouble. A huge corporation is suing her for her land. They want to tear down her house and put up a warehouse. And documentation of the zoning law that would protect Evelyn's right to keep her land is missing. Figures! I've got to find that document, but it's hard to focus on the land when I'm cruising at 10,000 feet. See, Ned and I are taking flying lessons, him with Colonel Lang, a friend of his family, and me with Frank Beltrano, an instructor at our local airport. It's a good thing I'm good at juggling more than 2 balls at once. Too bad I'm not the only one. What does anything in this plot have to do with juggling? I know it's just a metaphor, but usually their metaphors are thematically appropriate. In the Riverboat Ruse synopsis, they're ooh, It's up to me to catch sticky fingers before this dinner's sunk like a boat. And this one, they just throw this juggling metaphor at you out of nowhere in a very confusing way. But anyway, I do agree that maybe the part about, flying sounds fun, although unfortunately Ned is there. Ned is just entwined in that plot line. But it's more the first part of the synopsis that I'm really focusing on, because you know what kids really love? Zoning laws, paperwork, woo! Thrilling. The dangerous world of urban planning, woo! You can always trust the Girl Detective series to give us a plot almost as dull as Ned himself. That being said, though, there are some good Girl Detective books. I really like Close Encounters, and the other one that I was talking about with the poker, although I won't say what that is because I want to make a video on it at some point, because the plot is absolutely unhinged. I think maybe the most unhinged Nancy Drew book. Anyway, just a little teaser there. And the second stinker is the book Famous Mistakes from the Nancy Drew Diary series, and this one has a very long synopsis, so buckle in. Nancy and her friends are out to find a comedian saboteur in this 17th book of the Nancy Drew Diaries, a fresh approach to the classic mystery series. Nancy's boyfriend, Ned, has recently started his own podcast called Ned Talks, and he's just got his big break. Up-and-coming comedian Brady Owens has agreed to sit down for an interview. And this isn't just an interview. It's the first interview Brady has given since a video of him lashing out at an audience member went viral. Now people are protesting his shows and calling him violent. Uh-oh! Nancy Drew investigates cancel culture. Nancy agrees to help out with the technical stuff so Ned can focus on the hard-hitting questions. Ned wouldn't know a hard-hitting question if it hard hit him in the face. But when they go to meet the interviewee, they find Brady's hotel room trashed and no comedian in sight. Luckily, they find Brady unhurt, and nothing of monetary value is missing from the room. Only his notebook of new material is gone. My god, this is literally half the book they're telling you in the synopsis, and it's not even finished. Brady says he knows the people who've seen the video of him yelling. They think he's dangerous and doesn't deserve a platform. He wishes it would all blow over. Don't they all, Brady? Don't they all? Accept accountability for your own actions, buddy. Nancy disagrees with Brady. She thinks he should apologize to the crowd and admit that he crossed a line. Yeah, exactly. But she recognizes a person in need of help when she sees one and agrees to get to the bottom of this sabotage anyway. Complex social media charts, undercover outfits, and intense button study send Nancy, Bess, George, and Ned on a wild ride through River Heights to uncover the truth. But nothing is what it seems in this game of comedic timing. Can Nancy find the culprit before it's too late? This one, it doesn't even matter if I'm just reading the synopsis. I basically read the whole book now. But just the word comedian is making alarm bells go off in my head. I feel like that's never gonna be good. Unless it's maybe written by an actual comedian. But even then, I still think, comedians often have a history of flopping and not being funny sometimes. Not every comedian can be funny 100% of the time, myself included. Not that I consider myself a comedian. I just think I'm really funny. Anyway, but especially, this particular comedian sounds like an absolute dick. He sucks. He's no, I'm not gonna do the easy thing and just take 2 minutes to apologize to people. I refuse to do that. And it's dude, this could all be over so quickly. There wouldn't even be a plot to this book if you were just I'm sorry. It's really simple. It's 2 words. In the Stay Tuned for Danger book, I think there's this comedian who's supposed to be funny, and he's making rubber chicken jokes and wearing those Groucho Marx glasses, and that's supposed to be funny. It's heaven help me, please. I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this. Stop trapping me with these fictional comedians who are just the furthest thing from funny. And we haven't even talked about Ned being a podcast bro. I think I'm going to be sick. Just Don't give this man a platform. He doesn't have any original thoughts, although that doesn't stop a lot of people from starting podcasts. And I love that one of the things they're using to, like, attract you to this book is complex social media charts. Like, that's supposed to really, like, get me excited, jazzed, and hyped for the contents of this book. Her Interactive, if you're watching this, I never want to do a social media puzzle. Please and thank you. Like, that sounds like absolute hell. I'm sorry. I don't want to read about, and I don't want to play about, complex social media charts. Also, can I just ask, what the fun day is intense button study? But there you go. 8 Nancy Drew books, which I think would make good games. And 2 which absolutely would not. Would you play games based on any of these books? Which one catches your attention the most? And are there any other Nancy Drew books which you think would make good games?